Leydon. Welcome to Totally Lit.
Hello, how are you?
I'm excited to have you as my guest tonight. You're the host of the Missing Matter podcast.
I am, yes. I've strangely found myself in the world of podcasting.
It's funny how we end up here.
Hmm. Not something I really expected to be on the flip side, being that I had done a podcast with Channel 7 that went for nearly 5 years. So, yeah, I probably just wanted to utilise this space and the amazing community that's been built behind that to help other families in a similar situation to myself. Yeah.
I had been thinking about ways to introduce you to my listenership. And I was thinking you're an investigator, you're an advocate, you're a detective, podcast host, script writer, voice for yourself and your mum. You wear many, many hats. Did you want to tell us a little bit about your mum, which is really how all of this, your life has become a lot about her life?
Mm. It's strange you say that because when you are in the position that I am in, where my mum is a missing person, I've had to dive into a lot about her and about her family and about things that she was doing before I was even born to really get a full understanding of who she was as a person, not just my mum. I was 24 years old when she went missing. I'm 53 this year. It's been a long time. I just told someone this afternoon, actually, they're asking me about my mum, and I said will be 29 years this year, which is just completely freaks me out when I say that because it just sounds like a really big number, which it clearly is. But for your listeners who haven't heard of my name before or about my mum, Marion Barter, she was a school teacher. She was teaching prep, started the prep school actually at TSS on the Gold Coast before prep was even a thing. Moved up from Sydney. She'd been a teacher her whole career and loved it. It was her passion and her absolute joy, and moved up at the end of 1993 to take on the new role in 1994 at TSS as the prep teacher. And it did so well in its, infancy that they brought on another class. And so there was end up being two classes. And Mum was overseeing both of those and set up the entire area amazingly, as she was well known for doing. And something happened in 1997 that turned her world obviously upside down, but also mine and everyone who touched my mum in some way, shape or form. So things started to change. She just won at the end of 1996 the Best Teacher in Queensland award. Ida Buttrose, turns out, actually gave my mum that award. And through this journey, I've actually sat in Ida's office, and which was quite surreal, talking to her about my mum, and still had kept her notes actually from the presentation that she'd given for that awards night back in 1996. And something changed. So there was like a change at school. There was a lot of tall poppy syndrome kind of vibe, from what I probably personally describe it as, happening with her. I was young. I just built a house. So Chris and I, my husband, we just built a house together, and then we got engaged, did things a little bit backwards, but we're still together. So that's a positive thing. Yeah. So Mum came to our engagement party. She had told us that she was going to go on a trip overseas. She was going for about a year, and she'd sold her house because she decided she was going to buy a unit when she came back from her trip. I remember just saying to her, just make sure you're back in time for the wedding. And at that point, I hadn't even really set a date or anything because it was pretty fresh for us. But yeah, she got on a plane and went overseas on this trip of a lifetime, and we never have seen her again ever since.
She is lost, disappeared, gone. Like
Yeah.
I was thinking about it today, and one thing that really resonates with me is the thought of if that was my mum, how I would feel. And I have a lot of empathy for you and admiration as well, because you've fought and fought and fought to get someone to listen to you. And I think your mum would be really proud of that you're not sort of just, you've never given up. And it must be exhausting even to be here tonight to tell the story again. I've told it so many times, but hopefully there's a listener out there that might have something to share with you that could be important. And you did work with Channel 7 on the Lady Vanishes, and that resulted in some amazing finds for
Mm.
you. Like the story was the clues were being uncovered
Yeah.
from that. So there are results from when you share your story and tell it over and over again,
Mm.
because it has connected you with some amazing people, your super sleuths. That's
Mm.
what you call them, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. That have
Not that
just
they're a
come
big
out of
fan
the
of that.
woodwork.
Yeah.
They're like, we're going to help. And they have
Mm.
literally found things that the police were unable to uncover or not
Yeah.
interested in uncovering.
Yeah.
And it's taken you across the world as well. Like,
Mm.
I think for those who have listened to your podcasts, I don't think anyone could have guessed where it was going to go.
Mm.
The other thing that really resonates with me, I really identify with your mum. I was a single mum for 10 years myself,
Mhm.
and I always had hoped that I would meet a lovely partner, but I kept meeting the wrong one and was sometimes in some precarious situations, or I was taken advantage of because I was vulnerable. There are
Mm.
so many women out there who they just want a life and a partner, and they maintain hope that that will happen. But sometimes you meet the wrong person.
Mm.
And I have listened to the way your mum has been described sometimes in the media, 3 times married. I listened to something today where they said Sally was the daughter from her second marriage. And I'm like, that's not really, that doesn't matter. Like, we all
Mm.
have life issues. Do you feel like you've had to defend your mum?
100%. And, it really bugs me actually that the police file stated when I finally got to see that file. So for people listening, I went down to I probably would just preface by saying if you want to have the deep dive, go onto the Lady Vanishes and have a listen.
Hmm.
Then the Missing Matter, which is the new podcast that I'm doing, which was starting off where the Lady Vanishes ended. I do a block episode which sort of gives everybody an overview which goes about an hour and 20 minutes. So it gives everyone a bit of an overview as to what's actually happened over that period of time and a bit of background to the story and then where we were and what happened from there and to today. But, one of the things that stands out for me is the fact that the police file, when I finally got to read it in 2018, so my mum went missing in 1997. I had to apply for Freedom of Information documentation. They weren't giving it to me. I had to fight for it. I finally got on the phone and spoke to a lady who actually just showed me a little bit of empathy and said, you know what, I'm going to take it out. It's at the bottom of the pile. I'm going to take it out and put it on the top of the pile for you. And I had it within a week, but that was still heavily redacted. But one thing that was in there was the first and one only page from the police cops event. And that actually said, quote unquote, she has been married and divorced 3 times and she's capable of this behavior. And I still kind of scratch my head with that because I actually said at the inquest, to that police officer, you never met my mum. How would you know that that's typical behavior for her? And what are you referencing exactly? And for those that haven't followed along, we have my mum changing her name before she went overseas in secret. Okay, that's one part of the story that's a big part of the story. She sells her house, which I mentioned before, but she sold it very quickly within 3 weeks and she sold it at a $15,000 loss. So you think back to 1997, that was a lot of money back then. She goes overseas, she's writing postcards and letters to us and communicating openly with everybody. Everybody got postcards and letters. Her sister got a birthday present. So she was keeping in contact and leaving us little droplets, I guess, of where she had gone and what she had done and what she was doing. Like she's even written dates and things where she's going next. On this date, I'm going to Amsterdam and I'm going on the Orient Express. And so she gave us little cookie crumbs, I called them, for the investigation. And it wasn't until we did the podcast that I came on and I was included in the podcast, which was probably the first of its kind, to be fair. I
Mm.
was just talking to somebody else the other day who's in this space as well, and we were talking about how my first podcast I'd ever listened to was The Teacher's Pet, which is Headley.
Yep.
Now, Kai, you came to Mum's high tea that we
I
had.
got to meet Headley. That was amazing.
And Headley was there. He was our special guest. And I would say I'm friends with Headley, like I can call him up anytime and have a chat with him. And he actually reached out to me to actually ask me if he said to me, I'm looking for my next new story. And I keep getting all these people messaging me saying I need to reach out to you. And I said to him, I've literally just met Alison from Channel 7 this week. And he said, okay, well, I'll leave you with Alison, but I'm here if you need me or if you want to chat with me. So that's how that whole thing started. And the point of difference, I think, was I was very much a part of the team with the Lady
From the
Banishers.
first episode, you were there.
Yeah. So it was my story to tell, but then I became part of the investigative team. I was thinking about, leads and who we could talk to, and I was finding people. And it took me, I had a Facebook page set up in 2013 for Mum, missing person Marion Barter. And at that point in the exercise, I only had about 1,000 followers.
Yep.
Today, I don't know, like the missing person, Marion Barter, I think we're close to 29,000 followers now. So it's grown a lot. The podcast had 22 million downloads worldwide. So really big following, and people were just intrigued, I think, by all the rabbit holes that we kept going down. And we were doing it in live time. So we're recording me walking into cafes where someone said, hey, I think I've seen your mum. And they're capturing it all, right? Because a little bit of trauma, I guess, for the audience to sort of experience my goings in and out. And I did get awkward at times doing those sorts of things, like going to Luxembourg and knocking on the door.
That was full on, though, that scenario.
That was wild. That was a wild moment in my life. You can hear me actually. I'm in the car. I don't know if there's footage of it out in the universe, but I'm in there going, Chris is going to kill me, walking up to some strange man's house who I have no idea who he is. And we copped a fair bit of flack about knocking on this guy's door and saying, hey, look, you seem to be the guy that we're looking for who's written this ad in a newspaper that has the same name as my mum changed her name to. And there's no one in Australia with the name Ramakel. Very unusual name. And when we did all our research, we found out that there was only like 105, I think 104 Ramekels worldwide. We also know how old this guy was based on the ad in the paper. And this guy, I'm knocking on his door, is the only person we could find who had that same name. He happened to live in Luxembourg. My mum's written on her outgoing passenger card she's moving permanently to Luxembourg. So everything was clicking together and my brain was just going wild. But it
was taking you in the right direction, though, although at the time you thought it was a dead end.
Well, no, I thought that was a connector. I was like, oh gosh, maybe he does know something. Like he was so abrasive to me when I rocked up at his door. And I had said to the cameraman and to the journalist who came with me on that trip, I said, please don't come up to the door with me. Let me go by myself. They still mic'd me up so that they could hear what was happening and obviously to keep me safe as well. But I made them park all the way down the street and I said, don't come. Like, I don't want cameras in their faces. We don't know who these people are. We don't know if they've got anything to do with my mum's case at all. And I certainly don't want to rock up to their door and drop a bomb in their lap and then just walk away. And his wife's going, hang on a minute, what's going on? Because I would hate that in my world. So it was a very confronting, very confusing situation for me. I felt I was exhausted as well, I guess, because we were literally going like the clappers. We were driving in and out of Luxembourg City, and this guy lived it's probably like a 2.5 hour round trip to get back and forth. And one day we went out there 4 times because he wasn't home, and we were getting desperate at that point because we wanted to talk to him and see what he knew. And spoiler alert for those of you who haven't followed along, but there is another guy, and turns out he actually stole his identity and also had an affair with his ex-wife. So we were hot on the trail when you really think of that and how wild that is. Like, that was literally
it took you all the way across the world to bring you back so close again.
It was wild.
It like, you could never pick it. Like, it's an incredible story. I think, though, at the moment, you still haven't got a real resolution, though, which is sad.
Yeah, and it was an interesting resolution's an interesting word, because I remember someone asking me, actually it might have even been Alison or Brian, who are from Channel 7 and did The Lady Vanishes with me, and they said, at least you've got a resolution now, once the coroner said that my mum was deceased and that she died somewhere on or around the 15th of October in 1997.
It's a likelihood, I guess. And I think you have expressed that you believe that she has passed,
Yeah, I've
but
thought
you
that for a
haven't
very long
got
time.
any actual proof,
No,
though.
and that's where, the ambiguity that we live in the missing space. I talk about that a lot on the Missing Matter podcast, because people don't really understand what that is unless they're actually living it. And, there's been 2 cases this year where bones have been found, and one of them has just been identified, and he was missing for 8 years, and I've met his mum, and I've met the people supporting her at events that we've been to, and it's just heartbreaking on all levels. Like, we don't want to find them deceased, but we sort of want to find them as well, because it gives us an element of peace to know that we can stop searching now. We can finally rest and stop looking. But what I try to explain to people is there's still an ambiguity that lives with that. We don't know how they died. We don't know what day they died. We don't know if there's someone involved in their death. And sometimes it might be you find one bone. Like Celine Kremer, who's a Belgium national, she has just, well, they are assuming it is her because they've found bones, and there's been massive groups of people coming together, podcasts, making awareness. Like, I've been watching Rob, who does the podcast, and he's just chunking through, getting huge following. Like, I think he's got like 28K followers now too, and people coming, and I know friends of mine who flew down from New South Wales to go to Tasmania to do part of the searching with the teams down there, because people are so dedicated and they're such good people out in the world. And that's something that I have learnt a lot from doing this, because I felt very alone for a very long time. My mum's family did not want to talk about it. My dad and my mum separated when I was only 4, and he didn't want to talk about it either. My brother had committed suicide after mum went missing, and a lot of the chat was that, he went missing because he felt that mum had left him and abandoned him. And there's a backstory to that as well, but you'll have to jump on and have a listen to that, because I'll be here all night if I go through it all with you. But, there's a sadness with that. And, so Dad sort of was angry with mum in a way, because he's like, I remember at Owen's funeral, he said, your mother should be here. I should not be doing this on my own. And at that point, we were still firm on, like, believing the police. Well, I wasn't, but everybody else was pretty much firm on believing the police that she'd chosen to leave. And I'm like, she would definitely not be at her son's funeral if he had passed. She wouldn't have not come to my wedding a year later. And everything that we've got, all the evidence we've got, points to her not being alive. There is no proof of life for my mum. There is not one digital footprint from her after that 15th of October. And the 15th of October, $80,000 was electronically transferred out of her bank account into somebody else's bank account. And we don't know who, because the police went to the effort of going to the bank after I told them that money was coming out of her bank account. I had rung the bank when she missed my brother's birthday and said, can you just check if she's using her account, please? She's overseas by herself and I have no way of contacting her. So 1997, no phones, no internet. Mobile phones were fancy. If you had a mobile phone, you were pretty cool back then.
Yeah.
So I had no way of contacting mum, and my girlfriend came over for dinner and she said, why don't you ring the bank and see if she's using her account? She wasn't going to tell me anything. And then she said, hang on, did you say your mum's overseas? And I said, yes. And she said, oh my God, there's money coming out of her bank account in Byron Bay. So that's where it all starts. That's the pinnacle of it. And then I go to the bank and the guy acts weird when I go in there, shakes the mum's photo and, takes a copy of it and says, what would you like me to say to her if I see her? And I was like, what is going on? And this is in Byron Bay.
Do you think it was her at the bank?
No. Nope.
Do you think it was your mum that returned to Australia?
Yes.
So you think she made it back?
Yeah. I 100% think she came back. Like Joni, who's one of, like, she hates the name Super Sleuth, but let's call her that today. She's awesome. And she's the lady who actually we dropped the podcast the 1st of April in 2019. Joni had found the ad in the newspaper by mid-May. So we're talking 6 weeks, and she'd already
So she
found.
was using Trove, wasn't she,
Yeah,
for
and she had
research?
a
Yeah.
few little techniques that she was doing, like she put spaces in between the surname Ramakel. So she was focusing on the name Ramakel, and that's when she popped up this ad in the Le Courrier Australien, which is a French-speaking newspaper that comes out of Sydney, with an ad for a guy looking for a relationship, potential marriage, blah, blah, blah. It starts there.
I
But
was also listening to Laura Richards' podcast as well. I didn't get through all the episodes with you. I have listened to them once before, but I just recently, in preparation of this interview, I started again. And she was really diving into even the wording of that ad
mm, mm,
and how, well, insidious it really is. It was really designed to lure
mm,
somebody, and
yeah.
it seems such a shame because I think all your mum was looking for was a happy ending, which is what we're all hoping for.
Yeah, I think if we can touch on the fact that the gentleman in question actually came to the inquest. He was requested by the coroner to give evidence. I think he was on the stand for 13 days. I'd have to go back and triple check that. I keep saying 13. I'm pretty sure it was a lot anyway. He was there for a long time giving his evidence. He admitted to having an affair with my mum. He admitted to writing the ad in the paper. He admitted to lots of things actually that connect him to my mum.
I did log into the link and observe some of that, and I did yell at the screen quite a bit because there aren't really any words to describe
Mm. And
the.
for your listeners too, Laura Richards is a criminal analyst who I've become friends with. She is English. She used to work for New Scotland Yard. She now has her own podcast as well called Crime Analyst, and we've done some pretty heavy deep dives into the criminal side of my mum's case, and you can listen there as well because it just gives you a different, like The Lady Vanishes is like as I said, in real time, us investigating, and then we get to the inquest, what happens at the inquest, and then the missing matter is the follow on from there, like what happened after the inquest, because I had this flurry for 5 years of everybody around me, everybody wanting to talk to me, all the magazines, all the TVs. I was doing all these interviews because for me, I'd found Joni within 6 weeks of launching The Lady Vanishes, and she found a key piece of information which turned everything on its head. We still hadn't found Mr. Ramakel, who is actually called Rick Blum, at that juncture. But we then had another guy who was listening to the podcast, and he was listening to the frustration of the police coming back to me going, oh, we can't find who belongs to that phone number in the ad in the newspaper. So they were going to Telstra and, oh, look, they get rid of their records after 7 years, so there's no evidence of anything. And it only goes back as far as this. And now I've spoken to this guy and I don't think it's him. And this was all the chat that was happening on the podcast as we're rolling through it. And then this guy was listening and he took himself down to the local library in Ballina and hand scanned over 6,000 pages and
Wow,
found
that's dedication.
a phone number in amongst those which linked to a business, then he checked the ABN details of that business and found the person who was on the stand at my mum's inquest. So it's power of the people the whole way along. And, doing the podcast was absolutely key essential to bringing the story to the forefront, because up until then, my mum still was not even on the missing persons register. So she wasn't recognised as being missing. They still were telling me to my face her privacy mattered, and they used to call her Florabella, which is the name she changed to.
Yeah.
Florabella's privacy matters, Sally. You need to just accept, that your mum's gone missing on her own fruition. She doesn't want anything to do with anybody. And then they all got asked, all the police from two jurisdictions, Queensland and New South Wales, were all asked at the inquest, did you ever sight or speak to Marion? And they all said no.
Just amazed that I guess maybe I'm not a policeman for a reason, but if I had an interesting case come across my desk, my curiosity would drive me to find out what happened. And I'm amazed that there has been no curiosity
Mm. And I think
around that.
that's a good word to use, because to me, it's exactly what it lacks. Like, no one has taken my case seriously from the
Mm,
second I walked into Byron Bay Police and said, something's wrong. My mum's supposed to be overseas and $5,000 a day has been coming out of her bank account in Byron Bay for 3.5 weeks. She missed my brother's birthday. She would never miss a birthday. She sent her sister, as I said, a brooch back from overseas to make sure it was home when she got home, because she was also traveling. She didn't miss a birthday, and if anybody, you talk to any of her friends, she would never. She was the kind of person who'd rock up to your house with flowers and a cake every single time.
mm,
So there was no way she'd miss Owen's birthday, and I knew at that point, and just for your listeners, you might remember I said the money, the $80,000 was transferred on the 15th of October. Owen's
mm,
birthday is 3 days later on the 18th of October. That was a Saturday. Sunday, I rang him again, so the 19th, and said, did you hear from Mum? Thinking, okay, she might be a day behind because over in the UK it was a day behind. Maybe she'd lost track of time. He said, no, I haven't heard from her. And that's the night that I rang the bank. And then the next day we go down to Byron Bay and we do our bit down there. We walk the streets with photos, asking everybody, have you seen her? Going, what is going on? I have no idea. Is she here? Like, why
mm,
would she be here? Why hasn't she told me? That's a very stressful situation. If I talk about it so candidly, but you actually put yourself in that position as a 24-year-old. I'm freaking out,
mm.
going, what she's going, where is my mum and what's happened to her? Why is this happening? And no one can tell me anything. And, for me to walk into the police station and say something's wrong, and for me to find out 10 years later that they actually had marked her as an occurrence only, and said no further action required on her police report.
Are you the same age that your mum was?
Yeah, so when
So
mum was
if your daughter went in today and said, I can't find my mum, Sally,
Mm.
you would expect the police to do everything in their power to find where you are. And that is what should have happened for your mum.
And you know what? Sadly, Kai, I have said to my kids, if something ever happens, you just write everything down. You take
Mm,
notes, you record everything, because I don't have any faith that if my 24-year-old daughter, so to put it into perspective, in 1997, in June, when my mum left to go on this trip of a lifetime, she was 51 years of age. When I was 51, last year, my daughter turned 24. I was 24 when mum went missing. So we've done like a full circle in our whole family
yeah.
cycle. And honest to God, I have no faith that if I disappeared tomorrow, that if Ella walked into the police station, that they would take her seriously. I just have no faith in it. It's a pick and choose situation. I've got a situation in my own case with mum. We've got all of this information. The coroner has said, I probably won't say it on this podcast, but if you listen to the other podcast, we've legaled it and we've done it the right way. But if you listen to that, she's actually stated her facts, and more should be done. She was expecting more to be done. And when I asked the homicide detectives at the inquest findings, just being told officially my mum's deceased, I'm saying to them, where's the case at? And they said, oh, it's open, but it's inactive. I said, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean
Mm.
in layman's terms? Tell me exactly. He said, what it means is we have 800 cases, Sally, and we need to prioritise.
Shouldn't all lives matter? Like,
Well,
I do understand that you do have to prioritize work to get it done. But yeah.
well, sadly for me, the way I feel in my little box over here, I feel like my mum has never been prioritised from the second that I said something was wrong. They made assumptions on her. They judged her because she'd been married 3 times and divorced, and made horrible comments about the status of her situation. And unfortunately, that language has stuck with the case the entire way through. And this is
Mm,
why when I'm talking to other people who have missing loved ones on the Missing Matter podcast, I bring that up a lot, because I always say your words matter. So if you say something to somebody, it can stick. And that goes right the way down to bullying at school. You can say something to someone and that will be in their brain for the rest of their lives. If it
mm,
affects them, it'll stick with them like glue. You have to be careful. Your words matter. And making comments and judgment. And like, I've got my next episode dropping on Sunday, the 6th of February. That's our first episode for season 3. And I'm talking to a young girl who was only 12 when her mum went missing. And when I was researching and doing deep dives into Sandrine Jordan's case, I was just so overwhelmed, I guess, not shocked, but overwhelmed with how similar the wording is, and the language that was coming through. Not the same words, but it's the same language, and it's just making assumptions. And these cases are just left for the family to pick up the pieces and do the best they can with it. And some people are able to, and some people are not. Like, it's a very hard thing to do.
With the Missing Matter podcast, you're doing a lot of work promoting other people's stories and advocating for other families that have missing loved ones. Are you feeling, I don't want to say triggered, but are you reliving episodes from your past? Are you
Mm.
coping okay with that, or are you feeling strong by giving to those other families?
Oh, that's a good question. I definitely feel very privileged for them to give me the time to sit down and have a conversation and talk about their situation so openly and honestly.
Mm.
You should probably never do this when you do podcasts. You should never read reviews, but I have a lot of very, very, very good reviews. But there was a couple in there, and people were saying that I talk about my own case when I'm
Mm.
talking to these people. And what I would say to the listeners is that's an important part of the story. Like, I'm sitting there talking to them, and I'm trying to guide them and give them some help and guidance as well. Well, this happened to me as well, and this is what I did, and this is
So you've
how
got
to
lived
move forward.
experience.
I'm giving them the lived experience. It's not just that I'm like the sound of my own voice and want to talk about my mum all the time. I've done plenty of that. This is about talking about their missing person, but in so many cases, they haven't been told what to do next. They don't understand the importance of getting a death certificate once they've been to an inquest, that they can then access a grant of probate, which would allow them the privacy cap to be lifted on certain things like mental health records and Medicare and things like that, which I've had to go through myself, and no one guided me with that. I just was fumbling my way through. So in my world, if I can give an example about what I've done in my mum's case to help somebody who's in a similar situation, that's where I'm looping mum into the mix. But it is hard because I do get triggered. Like, I get a little bit stressed sometimes. Like, another review, someone said that my voice sounded scratchy and croaky or something, but they thought I was just stressed when I was doing the Lady Vanishes, but clearly not. And I was like, well, that's probably just my voice, to be fair. But, it is stressful. And sometimes I am breathing heavy because I'm actually finding it quite challenging
Yeah.
to be reliving what I've gone through myself in somebody else's story. And I understand for them how tragic and traumatizing it is to be retelling it. So, there's a lot of compassion, and like, I'm not a journalist. I'm someone who has, as you said, lived experience. And so I'm talking to them from somebody who's walked that same path. And it's important bringing them into my mix to do that I'm walking it with them. I'm not just
Yeah.
sitting there, letting them go for gold and hoping for the best. I want to help them as best I possibly can. And the whole purpose of that was because I had such a good platform and people were listening. Like, we've got nearly 1 million downloads now. And I just thought that could be 1 million more people that hear that story, and you just don't know if you'll find another Joni or another Warren or someone who actually might be able to do something to help you that you don't have a skill set for. I didn't have those skill sets, and that's why I hadn't found them myself. So I become reliant on other people, and when you get told by the police that they're too busy and your person doesn't have a priority in their world, you have to rely on other people. And, my mum's family had just turned their heads. They were like, just leave it alone, Sally. It's too stressful. We believe that she's gone and done this. So it became hard. My brother took his own life. So I was
Mm.
therefore on my own trying to manage the path myself. And I really don't want anyone else to have to do that if I can help in some way, shape,
Yeah.
or form.
Speaking about my own story, um, I'm raising 2 boys who have autism, and
Hmm.
I have a similar attitude to you, that I don't want anyone going through some of the things that I went through. when there wasn't any guidance or any resources, or like I had to figure it out all myself. And so I'm an open book for everybody else in that
Mm.
this is how I did it.
Mm.
There is
Yeah.
hope at the end of the tunnel. It
Yeah.
is, yeah, you can find your way through, but you've sort of got a unique experience that you can share with other families that have missing loved ones, where you can say, this is what I did, this might help
Yeah.
you.
And I
And I
think,
think, to me, I have a recurring dream that my younger son is left at daycare or locked in daycare, or he's lost and I cannot find him. And that dream gives me such anxiety, and I wake up terrified. And
mm,
that is what I imagine people who've lost a family member and cannot find them, they must be feeling that initial fear and desperation of,
mm,
we don't know where this person is. How do we find them? Like,
mm,
I haven't lived that experience, but I certainly understand that
mm,
when you love someone and you just don't know where they are anymore,
mm, mm,
that must be a terrible feeling. And then for it to be prolonged over a period of time.
mm,
Yeah, I think we all empathize, but
mm.
you're the only one that's walking the path.
Yeah. And that's part of the journey, unfortunately. Like, there's the numbers are getting bigger and bigger every year as well. And I have a guest coming on. We've recorded already this week, and she came into my space in a different way. But during that, one of her friends actually went missing, and she snapped straight into action and did lots of things that she's learnt along the way,
Mm.
and she found him.
Okay.
So I won't, no spoilers, but
No.
this is
Okay.
the
I
story
have
that
to
we're
listen.
talking about, and I asked her to come on because we've become friends through this space, and helping her in another case that she was involved with that went gangbusters. And, it's important to share the stories and the journeys, because over 50,000 people go missing every single year in Australia. So my mum first went missing, and we were talking to the police. 37,000 was around the number of reported missing people every year. Now it's up over
It's
50.
increased.
And the amount of resource and costs involved in reporting and looking for those missing people, and a lot of them are found. A long-term missing person constitutes you've been missing for 3 months or longer. That's what it labels you as long-term missing. And, we're sitting at just under 3,000 long-term missing people currently in Australia. That number hasn't changed much, to be fair, but we do find some. Like, as I said before, we found 2 this year already, which is very promising. Celine was missing for 2 years. They haven't identified the bones yet, so I'm very shy to sit there and project that it's definitely her until such time as the facts prove that it is. But it's where things of hers, like her phone and things, what were recently found, not by the police. The police had stopped looking, but by the people who took the time to actually go. Her friends flew over from Belgium to come and do a search, and they were the ones in that group who found the phone. And then they found a water bottle which came from the same restaurant that Celine was working at, and it was a unique water bottle. So that gave them hope that they were on the right track of finding her. But what a sad, like, to just imagine the sadness of coming to the reality that, your friend's walked off into the bush and she hasn't come out. So it's highly likely she has perished.
Mm.
But to have that ending is very hard as well, and not being able to bring them home complete as a whole person.
Yeah.
Very difficult to process. And, I guess I've been living with this, as I said, for nearly 3 decades now. So I feel like I have been through a lot, and I have a lot of experience. And if I can share that and help the next person who goes missing, and they just have a little bit of an understanding as to, me thinking, ticking in the back of their head, going, "Oh, Sally said, blah, blah, blah." And I'm not an expert, okay? I'm not an expert. I don't proclaim to be, but I'm definitely someone who has a lot of care and a lot of love for people in this space. And I just want to help give them guidance and support for those who do find themselves in that long-term missing space. But importantly as well, I want to let people know, what has happened when I've gone to the police and talking to these people. Some of them are very fresh. I interviewed a lady at the end of last year, some went missing middle of last year, and the police pretty much gave up too. They're not talking to the family. There's no reward. There's no talk of an inquest. So you kind of go, "Oh, but that happened 30 years ago, Sally." It's still happening today. And they make assumptions because of drugs or mental health, or they've been married and divorced 3 times. The police pick and choose who they're going to put their energies and focus into, because they do have a lack of resources, and that's a problem, and that's what something has to happen and change in Australia to make this space a better situation for those of us who are left in it.
So would you recommend to other people who are in a situation where their loved one is missing
Mhm.
to go to the media or to come on your podcast, or what would you recommend to someone who wants to make some noise?
Are you talking someone who's already missing or someone who goes miss, like a new
So,
case?
somebody who's already missing. So if there was
Okay.
someone similar to yourself
Yeah.
who
So,
wasn't having success with traditional channels,
yeah.
is
Well, and look,
starting a podcast the way to go?
yeah, and look, the missing matter was driven, like, it was called the missing matter Marion matters, because I kept saying my mum matters. Like, why does no one want to look into this more, and why am I getting told that she's not a priority after all this time and all of the stuff ups that have happened over the years with policing, and assumptions being made, and comments being thrown out there that weren't verified. And when Joni and I decided to go overseas and go and do more research and follow mum's footsteps from the postcards, essentially from where we knew, but we also had this other person over here, and we had connections that we wanted to check out too, and also people who were involved with him, women who had relationships with him who came on as witnesses at the inquest. So we went on this massive journey for 3.5 weeks, and the missing matter was really driven because people were saying, "When are you going to tell us what you found overseas?" That was how the whole sort of concept came about. And I said to Joni, "I don't know how to tell everybody what we found. I can't just do a Facebook post. Like, there's too much
Mm.
information and there's too much detail." And I had been recording it for myself because I have a lot of brain fog these days going through that stage of life. So that's just another
We're both in
aspect
that stage.
to my world. So I was recording everything for me, for my benefit, so I didn't forget, because we were bouncing from one country to the other. We went to, I think, 7 different continents, and I was like, "What is going on? My brain is just hurting," as we were traveling around. So we were recording everything, making sure that we could capture the lot. And then when we got home, everyone was like, "Well, we'd really like to hear what you're doing. Maybe you should do another podcast." So that's how that all was born. And so the first 13, I think, episodes is about mum and our travels and what I went through. I went through a lot after the inquest findings. Like,
Mm.
I literally got told my mum's deceased, and then everyone just went poof and left me. Felt like I was stranded on an island going, what do I do now? And I had a lot of complications because of mum's name change, and she hadn't changed everything in the new name. So I had certain things in her old name, Marion Barter, and then I had other things in Florabella Ramakel. And so I had a lot of hoops to jump through. I was not finished at that point, and I recorded the whole lot because I thought it was really important to capture that and be able to share that for the next person who might find themselves in the same position. And now, when we finished the first season of Mum, we sort of paused and thought, we'll jump back in when we've got something to tell you about Mum's case. But in the meantime, can we use the platform that we've created to be able to bring individuals on and let them talk about their stories? Because so often I was hearing people say, "Oh, how come you're getting all of the media attention? Like, my dad doesn't get any media attention and he's missing as well." And so that's where I kind of came up with the Everybody Matters. And if there is someone listening who knows somebody who has a missing person in their space and they're desperate to get, the word out there, or just have a chat and explain their story, they're very, very welcome to contact me. I have an email, which is just info@missingmatter.com, and anybody can reach out to us there and have a chat. They don't have to come on the podcast if they don't want to, but if they just want someone to talk to who has an understanding on their level, that's obviously an option for them as well. And yeah, it's just a safe space for people.
How much did you learn while working with Channel 7 that you've now brought across to your own podcast? Because you did have like direct access to some amazing journalists there.
It's a very different setup. They had writers, they had people putting the music together, they've got people doing voiceovers, they've got people doing interviews on certain things. I'm just me.
Yep.
So I'm sourcing the people to talk to. I'm writing and outlining the scripts for. It's not a scripted conversation. It's just like you and I are chatting here, just very off the cuff. But it's good to have a bit of guidance as to which way we're going to go and what sort of questions we want to ask, and making sure that we have the integrity of the case at the first point of call. Is we're going to make sure that that case is not going to be jeopardized in any way, shape or form, that we're not going to accuse anybody of anything, any wrongdoing. So there's a lot of that goes onto it. Jay Walkerton is my partner, I guess. He runs Podshape here in Brisbane, and he does an amazing job of putting it together. His guys there, Patrick, and the team, they help me edit the first version once we've done it. And then I come in and edit behind them and make sure that it's all correct and in the right spots and everything. And it's definitely team effort, but it is different. I think things I learnt from doing it with The Lady Vanishes is people would get cranky about loud music playing as like a background music, or they would. And it wasn't that they were cranky, they would just comment on Facebook, and they would comment on, reviews and things like that, that episode was in a noisy cafe and we couldn't really hear you properly. But, I have recently just said in my, I think I did a wrap up last year with Jay, and I said sometimes it is a case that you are in a cafe and you're actually just capturing the moment. And you'll hear the coffee machine going in the background, but don't be too critical of us in this space. I'm no expert, and I don't claim to ever be an expert in doing podcasts. I'm just someone who's really passionate about helping others. It takes a lot of time and energy and effort for me to pull myself back into their world to listen. I mean, I'm listening to you as well, and you're going, I've listened to the podcast and I've listened to Crime Analyst to try and get some background before you sit down and talk with me. You know my story well. We've met before, and you still need to do your background, so you actually have a full understanding of what we're going to talk about. And that takes a lot of time and energy and effort as well. So each episode probably takes me about 30 hours from woe to go. And sometimes I'm on the phone to these people for 2 hours before we've even started talking about it, just because they want to tell me their story and they want to explain to me how they're feeling, and they're crying to me and they're upset and they're frustrated, and so there's a lot in the background that goes to that before we get to an episode where we're putting it out for everybody to listen to as well.
I think there's a lot of trust to be earned in your space as well, because it's not just any old story that you're sharing, it's somebody's actual life. And that's what I've been trying to be mindful in our discussion tonight, is the way I word things and phrase things, because I acknowledge this is your real life we're talking about here. It's not just some cool true crime thing we're listening to. You're living it.
Yeah, and you've got to be gentle, and I'm big on the gentle conversation side of things, because it can be hard if you just come in and I'm just asking basic questions without actually having any understanding about what they have been through. And this is where I give them a little bit of confidence in our conversation when I bring my own story into it, to let them know, hey, I too have done this. I have been there. I understand 100% where you're at and what you're feeling right now, because you only get that with the lived experience. And that's the point of difference, I guess, with the podcast that I'm doing. And you're hearing it direct from these people, their families. And it takes a lot of strength and confidence and good energy and stress to pull yourself into that space and just chat. But I will say that after I've spoken to pretty much all of my guests, they've all come on and just said, thank you for giving me a safe space to tell my story, to make sure that I can control the narrative, that I can actually tell the story the way I want my mum or my brother or my dad to be remembered. Because when you read articles in the Daily Mail, or you're reading, or listening to a podcast, that is potentially very good, but there might be just a few little errors there. And, the smallest of errors can make such a big difference in a missing persons case. And once it's out there, I have learnt myself that, once the narrative is there, it can follow on and drag along with that case forever.
Yeah.
So it's really important that, and that's why I go back through and edit and edit and edit and make sure if something's been said incorrectly or in wrong context when we're putting it together, it's really important for me that the person who's coming on has trust that we're going to do the right thing and make sure that their story is told the best way possible.
Amazing. So what is next for you at the moment? You're producing the podcast and advocating for other people. Is there more work to be done around your mum?
Look, I would say that I'm heading to Sydney actually on Saturday and I'm meeting Joni. I won't tell everyone why at this point, but just keeping good connections with people, and we potentially have found some things that might be like a little treasure trove of information. So we're going to go down and catching up on Sunday to go through all of that. So we are still working very hard behind the scenes. We've got a couple of meetings with some people who have offered their services in certain areas like legal and financial, and when I say financial, like forensic accounting,
Yep.
looking into certain things. And so we've had lots of meetings, like late night meetings, because they're in the UK, a lot of them, and, so the time difference. But we are working hard to still chip away. A big podcast company, RTL, just did a podcast about my mum, which was phenomenal. I think they've got 2 million followers on Instagram, which is just crazy to think.
Amazing.
So it means that anybody who hasn't listened to that story, and, it's really important that we get the story told over there too, because
Yes.
there's a massive portion of the story fits into that world over there, being Belgium, Luxembourg, France predominantly. But yeah, so there's a lot going on in that space too. I'm also doing a project called the Green Seat Project.
Yes, that's a wonderful project.
Yeah, look, I just wanted to have somewhere that I could go and sit and think about my mum. And then as this is all sort of coming together and we're doing the podcast and I'm bringing other people into space, I thought, well, let's not just do it for mum, let's do it for everybody. Everybody who has a missing person feels the same way. They don't know where their missing person is. And when I rang Brisbane City Council about that, they told me that they have a missing persons memorial set up in a cemetery on the north side of Brisbane, and that if I should want to go there, they didn't offer to put my mum's plaque there or anything like that either, but they just said, oh, if you want to go and sit in a missing persons space and like memorial, we've done that already. It's up on the north side in a cemetery. And I just said to them, you know what, we don't actually have a body. So cemeteries are not really a comforting, warm place of hope and, being able to sit there and reflect on our missing person. I'm not going to go and sit in a cemetery to do that, but I'd like to sit on a nice chair and look out to the water running or the river or the ocean, or look over the mountains, or a waterfall at Springbrook Mountain, or something like somewhere where I could look out and go, I don't know where my mum is, but I can look out to a view and hope that, I hope she's okay. My gut tells me she's not, but, there's that element of hope, right? And that maybe I can find her and I can bring her home and lay her to rest properly, the way everybody deserves to be.
Mm.
As we said before, she would have turned 80 last year, and it's just wild for me to actually think what she would even look like as an 80-year-old. Like, I go through those sorts of moments in time as well. But the Green Seat Project is just a positive project that I've come up with, the concept of just helping those in the missing space and also bringing awareness to missing persons cases. So our first one was launched in October. It's down at the Spit at the Gold Coast. It's bright green. You can't miss it. It looks over the Boardwater, sort of looking over towards Southport, and it's got a big plaque on it that says The Missing Matter, and there's a QR code on there too. People can scan that and it takes them to the website, which is www.themissingmatter.com. And there they can read stories about the people that I've spoken to on the podcast. So
Yeah.
obviously I need to get permission from people to put them on the website. So it's been a bit of a slow process, but as we're rolling through and as we're talking to these people, they give me the permission to use their photos and things like that. So there's a lot of sensitivity and care that has to go into that process as well. It's not like just a quick bang, let's put it all together. It's just very heartfelt, and there is a process in that. So it is a slow burn, but I've been talking to the mayor of Rockhampton. I had a meeting with his team late last year, and they were very keen to get some bench seats happening up there. I've got lots of people who are contacting me.
I'd love to have them all across Australia.
Well, I would like that. I would like to see that because, as I said, there's a lot of people going missing every year. 56 odd thousand is a lot of people who go missing. And my thought was even still that someone who potentially is thinking about going missing, like it might be Johnny who's cranky with his mum and dad for some reason or another, and he fits into that narrative of, the bulk of, people who go missing are young teenagers who just go missing for a few days and then they're found, thankfully. But it might just give people a bit more awareness too. If you choose to go missing and you're walking away because you want to, just understand what it feels like for the person who's left behind, and think about who you're leaving behind and what grief you're creating for your friends and your family when you choose to do that, if it's your choice. And it just might help people understand a little bit better and think, you know what, I'm probably just going to tell my friend that, or tell my mum that I'm okay, I just need some space and I'm in a safe space or what have you. And that would just save so much grief and trauma for so many people. But yeah, we're working on that. We've done some fundraising and it's just a good work in progress. I am super busy working full time and doing the podcast as well and managing the Green Seat project. But, I'm doing it as I can, as best I can I'm a mum of 3 as well. So I'm pretty busy, pretty busy.
Powerhouse, I think.
Just rolling with it.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Sally. I appreciate you sharing your story and your mum's story and just sharing your experiences with my listeners. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Totally Lit is an independent podcast. You can help support us to continue to chat with wonderful Australian creatives by leaving a review on iTunes or sharing our socials with your friends. You can also make a contribution at www.buymeacoffee.com/totallylit. This will also help with equipment and podcasting platform fees. I love to interact with our listeners, so feel free to say hello either by email or social media at totallylitpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn and Twitter, and now Blue Sky. I've also created a group on Facebook called the Totally Lit Writing Community. It's a space to continue the conversation and share your writing successes, events, launches and latest projects. Jump into the group and say hello. Thank you for listening to Totally Lit, and don't forget to go out into the world to read, write, create, ignite.